Welcome to Understanding Wildfire with Professor Monks. Today's topic, arson. Arson consists of lighting a fire illegally. So why would someone light a fire when it's against the law and they stand to get caught and punished? Arson provides a good entry point to survey many of the most significant theories about why people commit crimes. One theory is that crime is the result of a biological disposition. Certain people just have a genetic makeup or other condition that predisposes them to not follow society's rules. With respect to fire, the biological theory would say that some people just have a kind of arson gene that drives them to burn even when it's against the law. In practice, this theory has often been applied in a racist way, with whole groups of people being labeled inherently criminal or, in our specific case, inherently disposed to light fires irresponsibly. The biological theory also underlies pseudoscientific claims to be able to look at the shape of a person's face or head in order to determine whether they're likely to be a criminal. Another theory is that inclination toward crime has a cultural basis. Perhaps people raised in some cultures learn not to respect the law, and because of that, they end up going out and committing crimes. This learned disrespect for the law may be general, applying to all kinds of crimes, or it may target specific laws, such as ones about when you can start fires. Though the cultural theory proposes that criminality is learned rather than inborn, it still encourages broad labeling of whole groups of people as predisposed to crime, and can lead to profiling and stereotyping. Recall our discussion of how dominant fire institutions might suppress indigenous fire practices. The suppression is based on a cultural theory of crime. A variant on the cultural theory is labeling theory. Under this theory, those very stereotypes about criminality are the cause of criminal behavior in a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy. If someone is told their whole life that they're likely to become a criminal, the theory goes, then they might just start to believe that and go commit some crimes. The psychological theory of crime attributes crime to individual mental illness. The criminal's thoughts are disordered for some reason, and we don't have time here to get into all the different theories about mental illness, and those disordered thoughts lead them to crime. With respect to fire, the psychological theory points us toward the diagnosis of pyromania. Pyromania is a type of mental illness in which a person becomes irrationally fixated on and obsessed with fire. Pyromania can be treated with psychological therapies such as cognitive behavioral therapy. Strain theory is a theory of criminology that says that people act out in criminal ways when they've been put under too much stress. Ongoing poverty, for example, may cause so much frustration that a person resorts to crime, either to get something they couldn't acquire through legitimate means, to blow off steam, or to get back at the people or society that caused the strain. Social exclusion is a strain that's sometimes used to explain arson. The theory goes that the arsonist felt shunned and disrespected, so they lit a fire to get attention and make people care about them. The biological, cultural, labeling, psychological, and strain theories all share the premise that crime is something irrational and deviant, the result of something being wrong with the criminal. By contrast, the rational choice theory says that crime is the result of a person weighing up their options and deciding that they will likely be better off if they commit a crime than if they follow the law. So we might imagine a farmer deciding that the benefits of clearing stubble and fertilizing the soil outweigh the downside of a fine or jail time, especially if the risk of getting caught is low. Rational choice may also explain why fires are sometimes lit by firefighters, who then hope to get paid to help put them out. Rational choice may also come into play when someone burns something they own in order to collect the insurance payout. Social control theory holds that everyone is inclined to engage in crime and other antisocial behavior if they can get away with it. Criminals aren't deviants, they're just like the rest of us. The only thing stopping people from committing crimes is institutions of social control, such as the police or mutual surveillance where everyone is watching each other. If an unacceptable level of crime such as arson is occurring, that would mean we need to beef up our social control institutions, for example by using improved technology to more easily identify and punish arsonists. The social construction theory begins with the observation that just because something is against the law doesn't mean it's inherently bad. Different societies have come up with different sets of laws about things like arson, which suggests that some fire setting may be labeled as illegal arson arbitrarily. Classifying a certain kind of fire as arson may be a way for some powerful person or group to advance their own agenda or to oppress the people whose fire setting is now illegal. This gives us a different perspective on dominant fire institutions that suppress traditional burning practices. According to the social construction theory, dominant institutions ban traditional fire as a way of exerting power over the people who practice that tradition and possibly exploiting them. For example, if a community's criminalized fire use is pointed to as an excuse to force them off their land. The political theory argues that crime is a form of protest against an unjust system. When people have been subject to injustices by the law and dominant social institutions, and peaceful means of advocating for change have failed, they may break the law in order to force those in power to listen and do something about it. How you feel about an act of protest, arson, will depend a lot on whether you think the protester's underlying cause is a good one, since arson as protest can be used by the left, the right, and any other political persuasion. For example, in 2014, rancher Cliven Bundy set fire to land in Nevada owned by the Federal Bureau of Land Management because he believes that the federal government should not own the land in the first place. He was fed up with the BLM charging grazing fees and putting restrictions on where he could graze his cattle. Whether Bundy is a dangerous terrorist or a brave freedom fighter depends on whether he was right that federal land ownership is an oppressive injustice toward him. And someone who thinks Bundy was unjustified might sympathize with an indigenous person who engages in traditional burning despite laws against it, if they think indigenous people's cause is just.